Welcome to Comical Recovery. I am your host with the most trauma, comedian Jessica Byrne, creator of the upcoming cartoon Bud Ease, winner of multiple East Coast comedy contests, and 35 consecutive years of life experience in the school of hard knocks. What does that mean? I'm a glutton for punishment, and I love to re-traumatize myself. Subscribe, hit the like button for recognition, tell all your friends about your new addiction, because sharing is caring. Welcome back. I told you this month is going to be all about domestic violence. And like a good abuser, I future faked the you-know-what out of you. I didn't mean to. But what happened was I future faked myself, and I got myself all up in a tizzy, and I moved, and I did a bunch of other things, and I got sick with a stupid toothache. I mean, there's a laundry list of crap that got in the way of me holding my obligations, so I'm playing makeup, guys. I'm playing makeup. Because I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So you're going to get 3 episodes this week. I'm going to just bombard you with domestic violence, because that's what we do around here. It makes sense, doesn't it? This is what the cycle of abuse is like. You get 3 weeks of silence and then 3 weeks of love bombing, or actually more like 3 days. It depends on the relationship and how long you've been dragging yourself through it. But that's all on a side note, guys, because we're not even talking about any of that today. We're saving that goodies for the last episode that I deliver. And it will probably all be today, or at least recorded, but don't let me tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just do it. Because clearly telling you what I'm going to do hasn't worked out for either of us, has it? So today's topic is disassociation. Disassociation, I have the definition here for you, is one way the mind copes with too much stress, such as during a traumatic event. Experiences of disassociation can last for a relatively short time, hours or days. Days is also qualified as short time, isn't that funny? Or much longer, weeks or months, which is not funny and very real. If you dissociate for a long time, especially when you are young, you may develop dissociative disorder. Didn't know that? We just read that together. Now we learned something together, because that's what we do here at Comical Recovery. We learn, share, and grow together. So, disassociation. Let's see what else we got going on around here. It says, is a break in how your mind handles information. And I'm not going to read that last one because there's a ... which means I have to open that link. So I was going to just basically go into what disassociation looks like for me, because I've certainly had it. Disassociation for me is almost like a blackout, but without drugs or alcohol. I'm in my body, and a lot of times, scarily enough, I'm driving, which is fun. So has anyone ever driven somewhere and then been like, holy crap, how did I get here? I don't remember driving. Well, you were probably disassociated. Chances are you were thinking about something from Christmas past, as I like to call it. But it doesn't have to be Christmas. It can just be the past. Or a nightmare that it once was reality. That's typically what is going on for me. Or I'm going into worry and fret about something in my current situation. It's really, really easy to disassociate when you are in a, I'm going to say domestic violence situation. And I want to be very clear that domestic violence doesn't always mean that you are getting physical assault. You can have emotional abuse happening. financial abuse, psychological abuse, mental abuse. I know that mental and emotional probably seem the same, but they're not. They're not. Gaslighting is a part of mental abuse because gaslighting happens when someone convinces you that a truth is a lie and you end up second guessing yourself. That's like the short version of what gaslighting really is. So all these different abuses are like layered into a nightmarish cake of domestic violence. So that is a little bit of disassociation, and I am slightly distracted as per usual. So let me gather my sanity, and I shall return after this short pause. So in this particular article, it's talking about how I have to read this first sentence because it's humorous to me and I'm sick, so I'm warning you in advance. Most people daydream now and then, and if it happens to you, it's perfectly normal. But if you have a mental health problem called disassociation, your sense of disconnect from the world around you is often a lot more complicated than that. Yeah, that's a weird sentence. I don't like how, if you have mental health problems, like, oh, okay, no, not just if you have mental health problems. If you are a person that has experienced trauma, and if you have or are currently in a state of domestic violence, you too will experience disassociation. Your mind is actually protecting you from whatever's happening. A lot of people will disassociate when they are getting sexually assaulted. I was going to use the R word, but I feel like the other one is more professional and a little less traumatizing. I guess that's the word, traumatizing. It's a little less traumatizing. It's equally as traumatizing, just a little less shell-shocky. Disassociation is a break in how your mind handles information. You may feel disconnected from your thoughts, feelings, memories, and surroundings. It can affect your sense of identity or your perception of time. Now, in my personal experience, it has definitely been more of the perception of time. I have not been, miraculously, I have not been through such extreme trauma where it has affected my sense of identity, at least as an adult, maybe as a kid. But my identity issues run so much deeper than just disassociation. And don't worry, guys, we have just started Comical Recovery series. There is so much more to get to know about me and you. And I'll be adding some co-hosts and some folks to interview along the way. So buckle up, because around here we don't give up. We try harder and slow down a little sometimes, because faster is not always the answer. So I digress, as per usual. So, the symptoms of disassociation. Let's get into this little jargon. All right. When you have disassociation, you may forget things or have gaps in your memory. You may think the physical world isn't real or that you aren't real. Well, I don't know that I can personally identify with those two last statements. You may notice other changes in the way you feel, such as having an out-of-body experience. That I can relate to. Feel like you are a different person sometimes. That I cannot relate to. Feel like your heart is pounding or you're lightheaded. That I can relate to. Feel emotionally numb or detached. Yepers, that one's for sure. Feel little or no pain. Yes. Speaking from experience as a child, when I used to be a cutter, pain was almost like a go-to from, like, I would be in this disassociative, emotional, like morbid reflection, and cut myself to bring myself back into physical reality and just feel that physical pain. Don't do that anymore. So I definitely don't suggest it. But I do understand it, and I don't judge it, because it's something that people do. If you are experiencing that, we should talk. So in private, don't say that that's what you're experiencing. Just let me know that you want to chat, because I actually have some tools for that. And if it's something that we need to go a little deeper on as a topic, let me know in the comments below. I would be happy to cover that. All right, so moving on. Other symptoms you can get are having an altered sense of time, not remembering how you got somewhere. Oh boy, that's me for sure. Having tunnel vision, hearing voices in your head, have intense flashbacks that feel real, for sure. And let me just jump back to the voices in your head thing, because I think that everyone, first of all, we all experience this. I don't care who you are. Like, when our parents or our teacher or some jerk on the street says something mean, sometimes we take that and we hear it over and over and over again, especially when we're in abusive relationships. So there's a lot of fear over telling people that you have this thing going on in your head, when in fact, that's just a thing that we hold on to. There's like a tape recorder, and if you get a really good psychologist, they will not lock you in a funny farm. They will actually help you and give you the right tools to differentiate what your voice is versus a voice from the past, or a voice from someone in your family that is repeating in your head, that is saying some crappy little comment to bring you down, because it does happen, and it doesn't mean you're crazy. It just means that your memory is really, really strong, actually. So, having intense flashbacks that feel real, that's a real thing, and that's actually a part of PTSD. Becoming immobile, that is a part of the freeze response. So there is flight, fight, freeze, and fawn. Once upon a time, we will go over those, but we're not going to do that today. But freeze is very much one of them. And the freeze response comes in when there's triggers, and I'm sure a million other things, but we will, like I said, tackle that at a different time. Getting absorbed in a fantasy world that seems real. So as I said before, you can disassociate during assaults of some sort. We all know what I'm talking about. And a lot of times, that's when I drift off into a fantasy world. Or sometimes I would be making like a to-do list in my head, or a laundry list or something. Or I'm staring at the ceiling, or I'm counting ceiling tiles. But that's a big go-to, is creating some other kind of realm to have a safe space in your mind while dangerous stuff is happening in your reality. So, causes of disassociation. Trauma. Yes, very much trauma. Sexual or physical assault, childhood abuse, combat, torture or capture, motor vehicle accidents, which I did not know until I went to therapy, and natural disasters. Locally in the area, a young girl just got struck by lightning, and now anytime there's a thunderstorm, she has a traumatic PTSD response. So if you're experiencing something that seems a little out of the ordinary, and you're questioning why normal people don't react the way you do, you might want to see a therapist about trauma. There is no shame in seeking help for trauma. It's a really, 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 really good thing to do, because I promise you, it is really sucky to live your adult life walking on eggshells when someone yells at their child in the store in front of you, and that brings you back to your childhood, and then you're just shaking for 3 hours the rest of the day and having a hard time breathing. It's very hard to work in retail when that is your trauma response. So it's really helpful to find a good person to trust. And, there's no shame in mental health, So anyone that thinks that because you see a therapist, you're crazy is an idiot. That's exactly how I feel. You can tell them that comedian Jessica Byrne thinks that you're an idiot if you think mental health and going to see a therapist means you're crazy. You can tell them I said they're an idiot. It's totally fine. I will co-sign this. So, now you know what disassociation is, what it looks like, where it comes from. So how do you handle it, Jessica? Good question. Good question. Let's talk about how to handle it. Well, therapy is a great way to start handling it. But guess what? Not everybody has money for therapy. And guess what else? Big shocker here. It's really, really hard to find an awesome therapist. It takes lots and lots of years from my experience. Hopefully not yours, but that is the sad truth. So if you can't find a therapist, or you don't have the money to afford a therapist, what do you do next, Jessica? Well, Jessica, since we're talking to me, just making it interesting, guys. My suggestion is I like to get in tune with my 5 senses. What that means is, okay, so today I have hot flashes because I have a tooth infection. It's super fun. I'm really excited about it. It's the funnest thing I've had to deal with this year. Just kidding. There might be something else that's more sarcastically fun to deal with, but I'm not ready to talk about that with you guys yet. Anywho, so if I was going to get in touch with my 5 senses, I would feel hot. And I would feel the sweat on my face, and I'd feel kind of sticky from the sweat, okay? And when the AC kicks in, it's really nice because I feel a nice breeze on my skin. And the sweat makes it feel like a cool breeze because it goes from hot to cool because of the air. And I taste like dryness because the antibiotics are making me have cotton mouth. So my mouth feels like rough inside. And let's see, I see outside of my window the blue sky and some nice white clouds and a bird flying across the way and the greenage from the trees. So that's 3 senses. And I smell, I guess, clean air because I'm in my place, and I hear the door open from the hallway. So those were all 5 senses, and what that tool does is it grounds you in the present moment. And when you're in a disassociative state, chances are you're not going to be able to tell right away. Sometimes it happens after the fact. And in the case that it happens after the fact, and you just realize that you're not where you thought you were going to be, or you're at your destination and you don't know how you got there, my first suggestion is to be kind to yourself. I'm always in a state of fear, so I have to be nice to myself and not beat myself up, because I can easily flip the switch and say, what the heck, you're such a idiot, blah, 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 blah. So I have to go check myself, and say, okay, you're disassociated. Obviously, you were triggered. So I kind of just established that with myself. And then if it's all happening after the fact, I go right to breath work. So I take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And I maybe count, 3 times in, 3 times out, and just do that over and over to make sure my breath isn't racing really fast or I'm not breathing at all, because either of the two can happen when I'm in a disassociative, panicked state. So just getting grounded in any way that you can. Like I said, being nice to yourself is number 1, and number 2 is getting grounded. So whatever that looks like, whether it's breath work or using the 5 senses to feel, see, smell, taste, and hear what's going on around you. If you're lost in driving, I suggest for sure pulling over and calling a friend, or getting your GPS out and, putting into the location where you're trying to go. But if you don't know where you're going and you don't know where you are, I would call someone. Forward, after you've used some of these tools, I would suggest looking up DBT, D as in dog, B as in boy, T as in Tom, and CBT, C as in cat, B as in boy, T as in Tom. Both of these are therapies, cognitive behavioral therapy, and I can't remember what the D stands for off the top of my head, but I have this handy dandy Google, so let's see if it will know, because I'm sure it will. And you guys are patient. I mean, you've lasted this long talking to me, or listening to me. Talking to me, listen to me, whatever. DBT. This is what I do all by myself, too. It's pretty sweet, guys. Oh, gosh, it's going to give me a big word. Dialectical behavioral therapy is a type of talk therapy for people who experience emotions very intensely. So, it's about mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, distress tolerance, and emotional regulation. So, those are my suggestions. And cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, seeks to give patients the ability to recognize when their thoughts might become troublesome and gives them techniques to redirect those thoughts. So like I said, these 2 therapies are definitely something to practice. Going further for your own personal recovery, there's definitely a ton of books out there. And at some point, we will tackle these topics in the future in more depth, in case you're curious, because I have that information. I'm a nerd, and I love to research. But for now, that is our take on disassociation and the topic for this domestic violence segment. There will be 2 more coming at you. I will not disappoint you. I will be a little late because, I'm human. And that's, it's a part of being human is like not being perfect. As much as I'd like to be, I keep trying, and the harder I try to be perfect, the more I fail miserably. So I'm just going to stop that and do what I can, because that's what I do, and you'll like it, or you won't, and I'll just keep doing it. So, love you guys. Thanks for showing up. I'm glad I showed up. I'll do it more. And I'll be consistent because I love you. And that's how I show my love. Just remember, recovery comes in layers. And laughter is the best medicine. I am a wellness coach, a yogi, and a comedian, here to tickle your funny bone all the way to recovery. So, thank you for listening, sharing, subscribing, and passing me around like your favorite doobie. I will see you next time for more comical recovery with your friend and host, comedian Jessica Byrne. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and an abundance of healing in your future.